Okay, I think the stars are aligning and we just went live here. Welcome to tonight's webinar, How to Get Financial Aid and Merit Aid in Today's Turbulent Times. My name is Andy Lockwood and I'm excited to share this information with you. So let me just check my monitor and see what's going on here. Make sure everyone can see and hear. So introduce yourselves in the chat. And what I want to make sure we cover is number one, I should have an outline posted right here. So you can see the webinar outline right there in the bottom of your screen. And I also have a gift. I did this with my previous webinar. So I'm giving a copy of my book out for free. This was the latest book that I wrote. It made it to #1 bestseller on Amazon and #1 new release and a few other type of what are those called? Accomplishments. And it's free for you to reward you for showing up on time. So that is going to be here just for the first few minutes to again reward the people who actually took time out of their schedule and showed up promptly, punctually. And I just want to tell you that I appreciate it because I know there's a lot of other things you could be doing tonight. So say hi and let me know that we're coming in loud and clear. I see a bunch of people coming on here. I see, Rena's telling me you have to leave the meeting early because you have a final PTA meeting. Good. Sharon says hi. Yeah, let me know where you're from too. It's always interesting to me to see where we're picking people up. Sometimes it's out of the country. Melissa, Rena, where are you guys from? So let me know that information, really for no other reason than my own curiosity. And what I want to talk to you about a little bit about what's going to happen tonight. So I'm going to be going to my slides and I'm going to be stopping for questions. If you have a question, I just want to give you some guidelines. If you have a question, a burning question that you want answered, two things. One, make sure that it's not super specific and only pertaining to you because we have, a few dozen people showing up tonight, maybe more than 60 or 70, I'm not sure. The best questions are the ones that pertain to, more than one person. The second thing is if you have an actual question to answer, and not just this chat, but an actual question, there's a way to flag that. You can toggle the 3-dot thingy and that'll change the chat to a question and it'll make it red. I'll be able to see it. And when I go through the questions, I'll be able to spot them easily. Otherwise, I may not be able to answer your question. So, okay, good. I see Robin, Rena from Syosset, Karen, Colorado, Lisa Plainview. Who knows Rena? It's like a reunion, I guess. Chuck, Maryland. Latanya from Metro Detroit. Gary from New Rochelle. Third time negotiating merit aid was not a charm, but that's okay. That's funny. Jeff in Cleveland. Adrian from Plainview. Good. Okay. So it looks like we're going to be able to proceed here without any technical glitches, which is always a gift. So I am going to begin my presentation here, and it's always a little dicey, so just bear with me. Okay, hopefully you can see my screen. Just let me know in chat if you can see it bright and clear, loud and clear, bright and whatever the equivalent is. Let me just switch over to full screen here and I'll be ready. Good. All right. So let's go. First of all, I promise that you will receive a copy of my book, which you can download on this website. And there's even a link here, collegenegotiations.com. That's a reward for showing up on time. So we'll leave that up for a little bit. So there's really 2 downloads. One is the outline for the presentation, which you should have gotten ahead of time when you registered, and as a reminder. And then if you would like a copy of this book for free, that was my promise. I'm already giving. So there you go. All right. So what's on tap is we're going to be talking about eligibility killing mistakes that you must avoid if you want to qualify for every last penny you deserve, how to negotiate, and some surprising, perhaps even shocking, truths about how college admissions really works. We just finished off another cycle, and a lot of surprises, bad and good surprises, but not really to me. I wasn't that surprised, other than to the good. So I'll share that with you. But first, you're not going to be hearing, if you haven't figured this out already, the same old from your that you hear from your guidance counselor, if you've even spoken to them recently. A lot of the stuff that's going to come out of my mouth may contradict what you have, quote unquote, learned from parents who have their own agendas, by the way, or any other sources. I'm not saying that I have a stranglehold on the truth, but it's definitely not stuff I'm making up. I'm not going to be spreading legends or fake news or even bragging. It's based on my personal experiences. I'm working one-on-one with clients who, frankly, invest a fair amount of their money to work with us and hopefully get a great return on their investments. But it's up to you to decide whether what I'm saying makes sense to you or not. Again, everyone has their own truths, so I don't pretend that I know everything, and I may be wrong in some cases. But what I am going to be doing is dumping out a ton of information in the next 55 minutes or so. So I'm going to be moving pretty quickly. You're gonna take a lot of notes. Hopefully, I advise you to shut down everything else you got going on your computer. It's like the old Outer Limits, which you might be too young to remember. But do not adjust your television. We are taking control, or whatever they said. That's what I'm trying to impress upon you. Because if you don't, then you're going to miss out on a lot. So, who's this for? You're in the right place if you're stressed out about how to pay for college in today's challenging times, or you're confused about how to even go about it, make a college list. You don't have any clue whether your son or daughter can get into a good college. You feel like you're not getting adequate help from your guidance counselor, and maybe, if you're really honest, you don't even know the right questions to ask. So I promise that in the next 55 minutes, you're going to learn how to not only multiply odds of getting in, but also easily and comfortably afford your son or daughter's top choice dream college without getting ripped off or mortgaging yourself up to the eyeballs, or your house or your retirement, even if you think there's no way that you'd possibly qualify for anything. I speak to so many people who are like, we're not going to get anything. What's the point? Well, as I will show you, paying full price is a choice. It is not an obligation. All I ask is that if I deliver on those promises, do I have your permission to take a few minutes at the end of this to give you a great offer pertaining to us and our services to consider? However, it's nothing to buy. So I know that's weird, but I thought about it, and it's an offer, but you don't have to pry out your wallet from your pocket. So this is fair. Just say yes in chat, and then I will take a sip of water to allow you a chance to respond. And I see a lot of yeses. Okay, cool. So if you're wondering, because I do these presentations all the time, but it's to new people. So if you're wondering who I am, who our firm is, we've been in the news a lot recently and in the past. That's me and Pearl, who's in the background here. I've written a bunch of books. This was this is the first book I wrote. It's been revised a few times. How to Pay Wholesale for College. I wrote one on the essay last year. How to Get into Your Dream College Without Lying, Bribing, or Photoshopping. That went over well. And the book I mentioned before, which you can, I think we're taking away the link right now to download this, because it's enough. That was for people who showed up punctually. So yeah, I do some news things every once in a while. Do a lot of presentations. Sometimes people say, well, how'd you even get into your field? It's such an interesting field. So just humor me here. I attended a really expensive college. My dad was, sole breadwinner, but basically a low income artist. And his attitude about money was, don't worry about it. He wasn't really focused on money. That's why he pursued the career that he pursued. He told me it'll all work out. So you may wonder, well, how does it work out when you wing it? For me, not so good. A lot of loans, credit issues, getting denied for mortgages and leases, and just a lot of stress. And it was really was not fun. It was really awful. But my promise, not only to my own kids, but to any of you, my clients and people who are not clients, is I want to do whatever I can to help you avoid this, to help them avoid this. This is all before coronavirus, by the way. So even after, it's going to be much worse. And I learned the hard way, but you don't have to do that. You can fast track yourself. You can cheat. You can hack it with all the years and hundreds of thousands of dollars that I invested in one way, shape, or form to learn all this stuff. And now we have clients from all walks of life, a lot of self-employed people, single parents, kids who go to a lot of private colleges that are really super expensive, as well as state schools. We get great comments like this one, which I'm particularly proud of. Dr. O'Hara, who's now superintendent in a great district out in Long Island here. I know a lot of college planners who promise results but don't deliver. In your case, I got great results. Sometimes people wonder, is this guy really for real? Is it all a scam? And Scott Sanders remembers that I looked him in the eye and replied without hesitation, I'll get you 5 times the amount that you invest with me. And he thought it was the best money he ever spent. I would say he ever invested, but who might have split hairs? This is pretty recent. I had a client of mine out in the Chicagoland area send me an email that said, hey, it worked. And what he was talking about was initially his offer for his daughter was $93, by the way, never a round number, $9,369. And ultimately it increased to $37,000 and change, which was an increase of $28,488. That's such a random number. And I think he'll get it again next year. So that could be, close to a $57,000 swing just for following our system. We also help kids, get into great colleges. Olivia just got off the wait list. There's a lot of ups and downs with this. So I just want to warn you, it's not all smooth sailing, even with us by your side. But the point is that we help with paying and we help with getting in. So the trends, just in case you've been living under a rock, is that admissions rates have been dropping. I think they might be leveling, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. College costs continue to skyrocket. Hopefully they are leveling a little bit, and colleges are scrambling to recruit and hit enrollment targets. I think that is critical to understand, because you'll see that you might have a little more leverage than you thought. And in terms of looking into the future, we actually do own a crystal ball and a magic 8-ball, so no expense spared here at the firm. Some predictions are, I'm not really going out on a limb with this one, a lot of colleges are in the process of either going belly up or at least consolidating or merging. Not just flesh wounds, but really severe realities facing them. I do think that we're still going to have a fair amount of international students coming in the years ahead, because they want to come here and they pay full price. So it works out. It's mutually beneficial for colleges and for them. I am a little concerned that it's going to be slightly harder for this year's kids, 2021 kids, to get into college because I think a lot of the 2020s, at least they're making noise about deferring or not going this year. And I don't think the SAT or the ACT is going anywhere. It's not dead yet. It's and I'll talk about that a little bit later if we have time, but it's still a very good predictor of how well kids will do in college. And it's a little bit harder this year for admissions officers to figure that out, because a lot of high schools have gone past fail, and there's great inflation to begin with. So they need stuff like the SAT, the ACT to help them figure that out. The elephant has woken up, even before coronavirus, which I think is just an exacerbation of a trend that's been happening. Costs have increased 1,100% in 25 years. Student debt is crazy. A lot of people think it's going to be the next bubble. Defaults keep going up every time they are reported, and I am shuddering to see what's going to happen as a result of the pandemic. It's really hard to get out of college in 4 years. So many kids switch majors. Some people think 80%. Before coronavirus, half of kids who graduated college 2 years ago were underemployed, meaning working at jobs that didn't require a college degree. And the overwhelming majority of employers say that college grads are totally unprepared for work. That is, there's a lot of scary stuff on this slide, but that's one of the scariest to me. Do you see why we cannot afford to just wing it and merrily roll along? You got to give this stuff some thought. Do you agree with me? Let me know in chat. I see a lot of agreement. Okay, good. But this is kind of rigged. It's not your fault if you feel like, well, I don't even know where to start. How do I fix this stuff? How do we get here? Because guidance counselors just don't understand this. The national ratio of student to counselor is 470 to 1. Counselors report that they spend at most 20% of their time on college matters, and they're just not trained in areas that we're going to be covering here today, particularly how financial aid works. And it's very unlikely that if you have an accountant that they're going to be helpful too, because they are too busy keeping up with tax changes. They're not really informed on the financial aid process. The danger is when they're partially informed and they give advice that like about where to save or about how to appeal a financial aid offer, and that advice turns out to be partially right for some people but dead wrong for you. I see that a lot, including this year. So I wouldn't rely on your CPA, and you have plenty of company. Because this is what the financial aid delivery system works. That's the simplified view, according to the Department of Education, and it is the background for the easier of the two main financial aid forms, the FAFSA and the profile. So I'll talk about that. But before I do, let's just take a breath. Just try to imagine what your life would be like without tossing and turning at night, being stressed out about how you'll possibly afford college. Or imagine what life would be like without the frustration that your child isn't doing what they need to do to get into a top school. Or what if you didn't have any uncertainty about what colleges to visit, what courses and tests to take, applications and essays, or a clue on how to manage all this? How great would that be? Because that's what we're trying to talk about today. So are you ready for the 12 mistakes that are going to help you avoid all these problems? I hope you're ready. A lot of enthusiasm tonight. Appreciate that. Okay. Okay, good. All right, here we go. So mistake number 1 is unique emphasis on the 4 years, not the 40. What do I mean by that? I think that all this emphasis on where you're going to school, getting to the most highly ranked school, where are you applying, are you going early decision? To me, that's as dumb as putting all your time, energy, emotional effort, and financial resources into rushing to the airport, but you have no idea where the flight is going. That's, to me, the dumbest thing. Because if you just wing it and then you end up, switching majors a couple of times, 3 times, next thing you know, you might be on the 6-year plan at, $70,000 a pop on top of what you're already paying. So that's $140,000 right there. And that's why I think it's really important to think about the end in mind and then reverse or backward plan. So the way we do it in our practice, and you can do this on your own also, this is not a commercial to work with us. The first thing we do is help kids figure out how they're wired. We give them an assessment. And that's objective, that assessment. 3 million people have taken it. We match that wiring to careers and jobs where work doesn't feel like work, meaning it shouldn't, because when you're in the zone and when you're doing something that you love and you're getting paid for it, it's not work. I mean, I can tell you that personally because I love doing what I do, and Pearl's the same way. But some things, some people go into careers where they actually hate it, and it does feel like work, and they hate Mondays. Us. I feel very lucky, and I'm glad that you're here with me. It's a privilege for us to do what we do, and I think you can have your cake and eat it too, because you can find a career, many careers, where it doesn't feel like work, and you can make a living. And then the third step in backward planning is now backing into a set of colleges that are reputable across, maybe 4 or 5 of these careers. Not the opposite, not going to college first and then figuring it out. So that's what I encourage everyone to do. Okay. And if you have questions, pop them in here and mark it as a question, and I'm going to stop and answer these questions once I get through these mistakes. Mistake number 2 is belief that the things are the same as when you applied to college or when we applied to college. Yeah, things changed a lot, and you may be wondering what happened. Personally, I applied to one college only. Well, you might be thinking, how did yesterday's safety schools all of a sudden become reaches? How did blank college get so hard to get into? I hear that all the time. And if you want to go specific, I hear that about schools like the U and Northeastern University, which I pick on a lot because I grew up right outside of Boston. And when I graduated high school, it was not the school that the best and brightest kids went to. It was a school where you went if you really couldn't get in many other places. By 2018, maybe even earlier, they were practically Ivy League status. And in general, they get more than 62,000 applications per year to accept 12,000 spots for about 2,800 seats. So how did this happen? How does a school like Northeastern go from joke to elite status in about 25 years? One clue was in this great article that I recommend, How to Game the College Rankings, how they executed one of the most dramatic turnarounds in higher education. Another way to do this is by just lying about, and I'm not saying Northeastern did, but these schools did, lying about their stats in order to fool U.S. News and World Report and boost their rankings. So I want you to understand what really goes on behind the scenes. And then all these mailers that go out, they are done for one purpose only, and that purpose is not to identify kids who are worthy, who are high achieving kids, although in a sense that's what they're doing. But the main purpose is to get more applications in. So you see Yale in here. There's a lot of Ivy League schools and near Ivy League schools. They are constantly mailing out to kids who really have no shot of getting in, but they do that so that they can get more applications in, admit fewer people, relatively speaking, and report lower percentages for admissions, which makes them more selective, and then they can brag about that, and they can raise money from their own alumni base, their own networks of graduates who will take pride in the fact that they can't get in. If they were applied today, they can't get in. Okay, so let's move on to mistake number 3, which is not understanding that college admissions is about marketing, not a meritocracy. So let me dial that back a little bit. It's not a pure meritocracy. Grades and scores are important, but they're not as important as you might think. If you have any doubts about that, witness the lawsuit against Harvard from an Asian American kid who had perfect scores and was at the top of his class, but he did not get in. And that lawsuit is, and I think this is in Copley Square in Boston, which makes me nostalgic because I see the library in the background there. The suit was over whether Harvard could legally, or maybe lawfully is the right word, consider non-academic factors in its overall decision-making to fill their class. And the answer from the Supreme Court is a resounding yes, that is permissible to consider things beyond grades and scores, if there's any doubt. So when people say, oh, it's not fair that such and such got in with lower grades and scores, but I didn't get in, my answer, at least mentally, is always, yeah, well, who said it's supposed to be fair? It's not supposed to be fair. That's your problem. You think it is. And maybe in on another planet, things are more fair. But that's not how life works, and that's certainly not how college admissions works. And well, there was a little bit of justice. It wasn't fair that that Lori and Massimo got their kids in, but they're going to jail, so that's okay. So not fair, but sometimes things do work out. Okay, so what I want to talk to you about is something that's really important, and this is part of our system, is to when you talk about marketing, is a term called positioning. And the way I always think about this is how Avis Rent-A-Car, and I actually had the opportunity to speak specifically and directly to the founder of Avis, because I used to bartend between college and law school at the Four Seasons in Boston. And Calvin Barris and his wife Avis Barris were residents there, and they would come in like once a week or so, and the first thing they would do is they would hand everyone like $5 bills or $10 bills just from walking in, which was so nice, and encouraged me to, strike up conversation with him. And one of the things I said to him was, I love that slogan. I don't know why. We're number two. We try harder. And he said, well, it's actually kind of an interesting reason that we came up with that. Our ad guys came up with that was because we knew that we couldn't compete with Hertz, which back then was not bankrupt, and the behemoth in the industry. So we were trying to figure out, like, what can we do to convince people that we're better or whatever. And we perceived that they were, because they were so huge that was an advantage. But what one of the ad guys said, let's turn that around and make that a disadvantage, and let's talk about us as trying harder to please our customers, being, America loves a scrappy underdog. So let's use that number two status as a strength. And that's what I always think of when I think of the word positioning. So it's about, when you're applying to college, it's about leveraging your strengths to make that closing argument. When you're applying to college, you're summing up everything in your applications and your essays that you've done, your entire body of work that begins in ninth grade. Actually, even earlier. Dennis O'Hara, my client who's the superintendent, mentioned that to me a couple of years ago. He corrected me. Because if you're taking high school level classes, that's part of that body of work that gets judged. So I'm not saying, in case you're, anyone who's cynical here, I'm not saying that you should run out and hire me or any college advisor in ninth grade, because frankly, most kids are not ready to work with someone and take the advice that soon. So I don't think that it's a good investment necessarily. But what I am saying very clearly is you need to start thinking strategically about this. So if you have a choice of, between ninth and 10th grade, what courses to sign up for, what to do over the summer, what to do in school extracurricularly, what to do out of school extracurricularly, all these things get reviewed and summarized by you, and that's the raw material that gets you in or doesn't get you into college. Ultimately, what you are answering is a question that is not on any application, but that question is right here. Why should we take you compared to, 5,000 is probably the low end. Northeastern gets 62,000 applications. The big state schools like the California schools get 90-something thousand applications. So why should we take you compared to between 5,000 to 90,000 competitors? That's what you're answering when you apply to school, because frankly, there's a sea of sameness. There's a lot of kids that look the same on paper. And you need to be able to say, well, this is why I am different. And that, if you don't have that, you need to find that. And if you partially have that, you need to play it up. It's about the strengths, not about your weaknesses. It's about your strengths. Okay, I want to talk about two stats here, 60-40 and 2/3, because these are very important for figuring out how admissions works. Academic credentials, meaning GPA, rigor, how many AP classes, and yes, ACT or SAT, together in the aggregate comprise about 60% of the decision that an admissions officer is going to look at, an admissions officer from a competitive school. The other 40% I'm going to talk about, but you won't see that on Naviance. You certainly won't see that. Guidance counselors don't really understand that. But there's a whole lot of non-academic factors that go into whether or not you're going to be admitted to your top choice school. And some admissions officers think that at any given competitive school, approximately 2/3 of the spots for kids to be admitted are reserved for non-academic reasons or for special categories. And one admissions officer, someone who wrote a book from Duke University, thinks that it might even be as high as 80% are reserved for special categories. So what are those special categories? Definitely stuff you've heard about and some you probably haven't considered. So recruited athletes get allocated a certain amount of spots. Legacies, whether your parents went there. If you're on the development list, that's a pretty big one. If you are part of a family that is affluent, extremely affluent, and the college has identified you as someone who could help beef up their endowment. So development does not refer to learning development, by the way. Some people ask me about that. No, it's about whether you can be developed into a donor. Underrepresented minorities are considered special categories. They also receive favored treatments. International students are also considered special categories. Someone applies early decision. All these categories have better chances of getting in, and in many cases, their academic credentials are lesser than what is published as the average. Certainly, the categories that perform below average, and this is not politically correct. I warned you in the advertisements and the promos for this, so if you are angry, you don't have to listen to anything else I'm going to say. I promise to refund you every last dollar that you paid for this non-refundable presentation. God, I'm funny. Athletes underperform, legacies underperform, development list kids underperform, underrepresented minorities underperform, international students tend to underperform. Early decision applicants do not tend to underperform. They tend to have at least as good or better qualifications than your regular decision people. But a lot of these categories above ED, athletes, legacies, etc., they are also early decision applicants. So there's overlap here too. Low-income families get special treatment also, favored nation status, just the same way these other categories do. So that's what I mean. It's not just about your grades and your scores. So what you should take away from this is if you are not in one of these special categories, you better be performing academically at least higher than the average, because those reported averages on Naviance, if your school uses Naviance, the software program, or the websites or whatever, those lump in all these categories. And that's just the way it is. And I'm sorry if you don't like it. I'm sorry if you think it's not fair. But hey, again, it's not supposed to be fair. This is kind of old school here, but I just wanted to show this to you. This was shared with me by a friend and a mentor and business partner of mine, Don Betterton, who's on the admissions committee of Princeton for 30 years. And I wanted you to see some of the other characteristics that have nothing to do with grades and scores that competitive colleges will consider. Achievement, talent, leadership, service, overcoming obstacles, integrity on the right side, leadership, concern for others, initiative. That's a big one, right? Especially these days when kids are like, I don't know what to do. My summer program was canceled. Well, show some initiative. When someone asks you, what'd you do last summer or the summer of coronavirus, you better have a good answer. Work habits, maturity, creativity. Okay. I think all this stuff now is so much more important. I think character is the new SAT. Thank you, Lori, Felicity, and all them. But I think this is much more important than it ever has been before. So your applications need to really transmit that, your character, your activities, your recommendations, etc. Okay, mistake number 4 is moving right along. Again, I see comments coming in. If you have an actual question, use the little toggle thingy, the 3 dots, to change it from a chat to a question, and that'll help make it easier. Behind the scenes, Pearl's doing that too, if you don't do that, but that'd be great. And if you're just joining us, we're on mistake 4 out of 12 of this presentation, and we're talking about, so far, what it takes to get in, and we're going to talk about the money. Okay, so mistake number 4 is naivete about the truth. College is keep it clean, folks. College is a business. Yeah, I see. Okay, saw someone get that right. Good. College is a business. Even though they're nonprofit, which is hilarious to me, they are all about the money. In many cases, they can't exist without it. I'm not even being critical. I'm just sort of calling it like I see it. But what's important is, and this is important even if our kids don't get this, if they don't understand this, is that they are in business for themselves. They need to look at this as a business transaction. They need to understand that they're in the business of promoting themselves, to get in where they want, even if they're not comfortable. And they're in the business of maximizing their money, their financial aid and merit aid packages, so you can get a return on the investment into your business. That's what it's all about, at least with us. And this is one of these things that I know is different. You probably haven't heard this from your guidance counselor. You probably haven't heard this from any other college advisor if you've talked to any. But we are all about the return on investment, which is really the what's next, not the 4 years of college, but the 40 years or 50 years afterward. That's why I've spent a little bit of time in the beginning here talking about this, just so you understand. You don't have to agree with me. I'm just telling you how we see it. So it's business, and any business needs to profit or get a return on investment. If this makes you or your kids uncomfortable, yeah, I get it. That's okay. So what, right? If the greatest results, not just for college but in life, come from stepping out of your comfort zone. These are not getting into college strategies. These are life strategies, which again, for us at least, far more important than where you're going to go to college or where you're going to slap that rear window sticker up. Or, well, I know where you're going to, or what that sticker is going to say. Far more important. All right, let's get to the money. Mistake number 5 is failure to understand the federal and institutional financial aid formulas. The federal and institutional financial aid formulas. Here's the formula. COA minus EFC equals need. COA minus EFC equals need. So what does that mean? Well, first of all, EFC is the most important aspect of that. So COA means cost of attendance. What's the cost for 1 year of college? Tuition plus all the other stuff that they nail you with. EFC is your expected family contribution, which I'll explain, and what's left over is your financial need. So the EFC is what they, meaning the formulas and the financial aid officers, think that you can afford for 1 year of college. So understand that the lower your EFC is, meaning the least you can afford, that translates into the more financial need that you will show. Therefore, you're more eligible for grants and scholarships and even loans. And it's a little bit different for the two main forms, and this is a gross oversimplification, but the FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. Every college requires that. And then there's this other form, the CSS profile, that only a fraction of colleges require, in addition to the FAFSA, not in lieu of it. And then there are other forms that some schools have on their own. The biggest flaws, no matter how you slice it, is none of these forms includes your expenses or your cost of living. They don't include expenses, and this is an oversimplification because the profile does ask about mortgages, but that's really it. So if you live in a very high-taxed, high property valued area, that's irrelevant, even if you make the same money as someone who does not live in that type of area, like in the Midwest versus the coasts. Cost of living, not considered. There's many flaws, but that's one of them. Cost of living, not considered at all. So here is, if you like numbers, this is a little bit of a breakdown, which I'm going to explain, but the two main, there's 73 factors in the financial aid formulas, but the two main ones are income and assets, and they're treated a little bit differently. So you can see here that parent income and parent assets are penalized, which means they'll increase your EFC by certain percentages, which I'm going to explain a little bit of. And child income and child assets are treated differently. So stay tuned for that. First, let's talk about income. Income means all income, not just IRS income, but it also means untaxed income. When the financial aid, when you're doing a FAFSA and they're calculating your expected family contribution, how much you can afford, back here, that 22 to 47% means all of your income, even if you're receiving pensions, child support, you name it, that's all included. It's not just IRS income. Now, there's a 2-year look back on income. So that means if you have someone graduating 2021, they're going to be basing your award on 2019. If things have changed dramatically, hello, coronavirus, then you have an opportunity to appeal. But it's not going to show up anywhere in your financial aid forms. You're going to have to go through the process, get a crappy award, and then appeal it. Okay, now let's talk about assets. And I know I'm moving quickly. I know you have questions. Pop them in the chat. I'll do my best. hypothetically speaking, if you had $100,000 saved in the wrong places, meaning your child's name, which I will explain what that means, you will be penalized. You will reduce your eligibility by $20,000 or $25,000 because you're reducing your eligibility by 20 to 25% of money saved in your kids' names. Even if your accountant or your financial guy said, "Oh, you should open up a custodial account to save money," yes, that may have helped you for deductions or some other tax planning purposes. In financial aid, it can absolutely sabotage your eligibility. That same amount of money, $100,000 in a parent's name, penalizes you only about $5,640 because the EFC penalty for money in a parent's name is 5% and change. You can also take that same $100,000 and put it in an account that is legal and ethical and moral that, thank you very much, that will not penalize you at all. So that's what we're going to be talking about right now. Is that okay with you guys? Because just let me know. If it's not okay, I can just skip it, if you don't want to hear it. Ha 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 ha. Of course I'm going to talk about that. Okay. Boy, I didn't fool anybody. Okay. So just remember that child savings penalizes you way more, 400% more than parent savings. Here are the directions on the FAFSA where I'm going to be pulling a lot of this information. Here's what counts against you that gets included. Checking account, bank stuff, savings, stocks, bonds, CDs, you name it. Also, the exemptions. Investments do not include there's four things. Your primary residence, your retirement accounts, it does not include annuities, and it does not include life insurance. So if you're taking notes here, understand that the four exemptions, and I'm going to talk more about these, primary residence, retirement accounts, annuities, and life insurance. Those are exempt. And if you're a business owner, that's a big loophole, small business loophole. If you employ fewer than 100 employees, that is a big potential loophole. I'm going to make some comments on that too. Before I get there, just understand, before you start, ripping money out of an account and slamming it into an insurance policy or something like that, you also have to understand that there are potential negatives and costs to sheltering your money. There are taxes, there are penalties. You've got to understand not only the impact of moving money away from where you have it currently, but also you have to understand where you're depositing your savings or what you're depositing your savings into and how that works. Meaning, how long do you have to keep it there? Can you lose your money? What are the fees? All that type of stuff. So just understand that what I'm talking about here doesn't work for everybody. Everything I'm saying, by the way, works for some people, but not for everyone. So the trick is to figure out what category do you fit in. But even if this stuff doesn't work, it may not matter. And I'll explain that. So now let's get into 5 strange, weird, and wacky college funding facts, college financial aid facts. First fact, most aid goes to people in the top 25% of income earners. High income, 6-figure earning people, they're the ones who get the lion's share of money. I'll explain why. The average discount, I think this is actually a little bit low, according to an article I read, I believe it was this morning. The average discount off tuition is more than 52%, according to the National Association of Collegiate Business Officers. At any given college, the average is only about 25% pay full price. That's why I say paying full boat is a choice, not an obligation. You're not resigned to paying $75,000 a year or more just because other people do. There's actually more merit-based funding out there in the system than there is need-based money. And merit funding means anything that's not based on the financial aid formula that I've talked about before that I'm going to get back to. And this might be the strangest of all, strangest secret in college financial aid, high sticker price private colleges can actually cost less out of pocket than state schools, the cheaper state schools, because really 2 reasons. One, they have more money to give, more money to discount. State schools don't have money. And number 2, this gets overlooked a lot, but I want to talk about it now, is that it takes a lot longer to get out of a state school in general because you can't get the classes that you need to graduate in your major. That's the biggest issue, that you in private schools, they do a lot better job because the classes aren't as oversubscribed. So many times when you're looking at the net prices, not the gross sticker prices, but the net prices of expensive schools and state schools, it can be misleading or surprising at least. Okay, so mistake number 6, I've already talked about this, but I just want to emphasize this. If you're doing your forms yourself and you mix up your parent assets with child assets, you are going to shoot yourself in the foot because parent assets penalize you much less than child assets. So let's just take a look at some common forms of savings. And what I want to make some remarks on is the 529 plan. So the 529 is considered to be a parent asset, meaning penalized less under the financial aid formulas. And I just want to say this, that's a 529 for all kids. So if you have 3 kids and 3 different accounts set up, they all go on the FAFSA because the federal rules understand that you can shift beneficiaries from one to the other easily and legally. So that's the reason I put an asterisk there is because I think many schools that have their own money, the ones that take this other form that I mentioned, the CSS profile, they still treat the 529 as a child asset. So if you move to the right side of the column, the UTMA and the UGMA, those are custodial accounts that get penalized 400% more than parent assets. And if you're applying to certain schools, the 529 might be in that category too, under the child column. But for the most part, the federal rules dictate that 529 is penalized more benignly. So by the way, you may be wondering, wow, I didn't think it was penalized at all, or why is it even penalized? Well, yeah, they never tell you that. So the 529 is a good thing because of its tax benefits, but if you're going to qualify for need-based aid, it'll count against you. It'll reduce your need-based aid. So you're penalized for doing the right thing, for opening one of these things recommended by your accountant or your financial advisor. So you may be wondering, well, what can I do? Well, you might be able to shelter it. You might be able to sell it early. But if you do that, then you'll pay penalties on the earnings. Good news, bad news. You may not have any earnings, but that may be bad news. And then you have to worry about, okay, well, what am I putting it into? And again, I'm not a financial advisor, so I can't really do a presentation, I think, legally on the benefits of an insurance product. All I can tell you, which is exempt, or annuities. What I can tell you is I've seen a lot more really bad things than compared to a few good types of products that are suitable. So if I were talking to a client about that, I'd say, listen, do you have a financial advisor? I'll talk to him directly. And half the time they're like, yeah, but he's lousy. I haven't heard from him. He barely even knows I'm alive. Then I'll say, okay, fine, I'll refer you to someone. But you should always get a financial advisor involved with these types of decisions, whether it's someone that I refer if we're working together or if it's on your own. Okay, mistake number 7 is also related to what I talked about before, but I think it's important for you to write down, including your primary residence or your retirement accounts in your net worth. One more time, including your primary residence or retirement accounts in your net worth. So if you make the mistake of inadvertently oversharing, people overshare online on Facebook, hey, here are my toes, I'm at the beach. Or, oh, look at this great meal I just cooked with avocado, quinoa, blah, 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 kale, God, barf. Then that's just annoying. But if you overshare in the FAFSA, if you include things that should not be included, like your primary residence or your retirement accounts, what you'll actually be doing is making a costly mistake, and you will be artificially inflating your EFC, which will decrease your eligibility, which means you get less money if you goof up, if you overshare. So don't do that on Facebook or the FAFSA. So let me just to summarize here, there's 4 exemptions. There's a primary residence, retirement accounts, annuities, and life insurance. And the FAFSA and the CSS profile treat them a little bit differently. So the primary residence exempt on the FAFSA, but not on the CSS profile. So again, the CSS profile, there's about 400 colleges that require it. It's mostly schools that have their own money. It's in addition to the FAFSA, not in lieu of, and it's a pain in the ass. Pardon my French. Pain in the derriere. That's French. Hey, this guy's good. Sorry. So the profile is different, and that is a key differentiator right there. Your retirement accounts also completely exempt on the FAFSA, disclosable on the profile, but every financial aid officer, at least on the record, says that the profile does not penalize you for retirement accounts. They just want to see what you have. Does that make sense? Not really, but I kind of believe it for the most part. Annuities is the third exemption. By the way, you guys finding this helpful? I know I'm sort of on a roll here, but I think this is stuff that you just don't get anywhere else. So I just want to, hopefully you're finding this helpful and valuable in this free, non-refundable presentation, and you're appreciating it here, because this is, I know for a fact that most people don't ever learn this stuff. Okay, good. All right, thanks. I see some nice chatty comments. Okay, so back to the third exemption. Annuities, totally exempt on the FAFSA, but only some are exempt on the CSS profile. They make a distinction between retirement annuities, which are exempt, versus non-retirement annuities. And then the fourth category is life insurance, which is exempt across the board, both forms. So that's just a sum up here. Okay. Don't make mistakes that could cost you tens of thousands of dollars. All right, here's another mistake to avoid. Blowing priority deadlines. Deadlines. You're dead if you blow a deadline. So understand that there's, in the whole process, and this is a reason why people hire specialists to help them manage all this stuff. It's not just the strategic stuff. It's like all the overwhelm about all the things you have to keep track of. So if you're applying for early decision, early application, early admission, you might have different deadlines for each school potentially. You also have a separate set of priority financial aid deadlines, which varies from each school, varies from school to school. That's why you must look up the deadlines for each college on your list. There is no universal deadline. Sometimes we get the question, hey, when is the FAFSA due? Well, it's not like your taxes, which have a deadline, but in financial aid, a universal deadline, but for financial aid, it can vary from school to school. So my pro tip here is you need to make a chart. You need to figure it all out so you don't miss any deadline, because it's not like, hey, everything's due on April 15th. No, it could be due October 15th. It could be due November 1st. It could be due, and again, I'm talking about financial aid applications. They could be due on November 15th, December 1st, March 1st, February, who knows. It's different for returning students also compared to new students. So that on top of the college admissions deadlines, you can't let them sneak up on you. You need to get organized. If you blow a deadline, you'll sabotage yourself. All right, mistake number 9 is for business owners. Business owners, the mistake that I already hinted at is overvaluing your business. So let me give you an example. Our clients Tina and Jeff are in business for themselves. They do a lot of excavation work. They have a real business. It's a nice business. They do work for the county. She contacted me after she had done the whole process, the forms herself, and her daughter, Paige, got in virtually everywhere, but got no money, like literally a goose egg from every school, including NYU. So she said, I just feel like I did something wrong. I'll pay you even to take a look at my forms that I filed. And I said, pay me. Now you're talking. No, I had to take out a second mortgage to afford me. Kidding. So here's what happened. So we met, and I reviewed her forms, and I immediately saw the problem, and it had to do with her business value. She used a real-world value, a common sense value, a value that she gives her equipment lenders for the question on the FAFSA, which is, if you are self-employed, what's the value of your business? And I know, as I noted before, most businesses have a value of 0. So we fixed it. We meaning Pearl. She refiled the forms, and the forms meaning the FAFSA and the CSS profile to everywhere, including NYU, that her daughter had gotten into. And here's what happened: she, instead of getting 0, she got $25,000, and that happened every year for 3 years in a row. And I don't know what happened afterward, but it was a $75,000 swing for this mistake. So if you're self-employed, understand this is one of the biggest mistakes, and there's a lot of others. And by the way, there's also some strategies that you can use if you are a business owner. So we specialize in helping business owners. Okay, another niche, or people who have different considerations and landmines to be aware of, to steer clear of, is divorced and separated families. So the mistake, this mistake number 10 is using the wrong parent. Loaded term if you're divorced and separated, but for financial aid, using the wrong parent means the custodial parent versus the non-custodial parent. Who should fill out the financial aid forms? Is it the parent that declares the kid as a dependent on the financial aid forms? No. It's the parent that the child resides with a majority of time. It's not necessarily who deducts the kid on taxes. So that's what financial aid cares about, is custodial versus non-custodial. The CSS profile will ask questions either a little bit or require a whole other filing from a non-custodial parent, depending on the school. So FAFSA colleges, schools that only require the FAFSA, only care about the custodial parent, whereas colleges that take the CSS profile either want a little bit or a lot bit of information from the non-custodial parent. So it really varies from school to school what's required in a divorce or separation. Here's something else that Pearl and I see all the time. Just because you have an agreement with your ex that requires the dad to pay for 75% of in-state tuition, yeah, that's irrelevant for financial aid, because the financial aid rules care about your capacity, not what you've negotiated, but your ability to pay. If you have a non-participating deadbeat, let's face it, deadbeat dad, then most colleges will let you off the hook and say, okay, if they're not going to participate at all, then we don't need that information. So again, that's for the CSS profile schools. So they'll have you sign a quick form, like a certificate of, I don't know, non-cooperation or something or whatever. Very straightforward, and you'll be fine. Okay, so those are my tips on divorced and separated families. Make sure the right person is filling it out. If there's some flexibility, if one parent has lower income, lower assets, and you can, in good faith, say that, well, that's the custodial parent that my child has resided a majority of time with in the last 12 months, who knows? That might be a big windfall for you. Okay, and again, pop your questions in. I'm getting to them in a few minutes. Okay, moving on along. This is an easy one. Mistake number 11 is not applying at all. Not applying. 53% of families fail to do this. You can believe that stat and take it to the bank because I saw it on the internet. So every year, this year included, I see stuff like, and you probably might also, $2.9 billion left on the table, according to USA Today. I don't know what the real number is. I know it's a lot. I know a lot of people don't apply because they think they can't apply. They're not going to get anything. Even high-income parents should apply because you might need to apply in order to be considered for merit aid. Even if you think you're not going to qualify, your school might require you to file the forms anyway, because NYU is one of those schools around here, New York University. Fordham is another one, because they just want to make sure they're giving you money from the right bucket, I guess. So even if you think you're not going to qualify, you should still most likely file. At the very least, you'll show financial strength. If you make $1 million a year or more, that'll help your kids' chances of getting in at most schools that need money. And it'll also indirectly help you get merit aid. Colleges are much more likely to give merit aid to high-income families from affluent zip codes. So filing the financial aid forms, even if you think you're a long shot, is potentially going to pay off for that reason too. But a lot of people, getting back to the original point here, a lot of people just don't file because they think they're not going to qualify. And some are right, some are wrong. So I don't see why you wouldn't file. Mistake number 12 is just, starting too late. Starting too late. The later you start, the fewer your choices. This is like a life lesson thing here. I didn't really want to get into that, but look, I talked to so many people who are like, yeah, I heard about you, or sometimes I wish I heard about you earlier, but I saw you speak at a library, or I got your free report, or I read your book, or whatever it is, and I've been meaning to contact you, and I never got around to it, and now I'm at such and such a point, and can you help me? And a lot of times the answer is no, I can't. It's too late. So Don't delay getting started on this. Whatever you do, whether it's on your own or not, just don't blow it off. Don't just say, "Oh, that was a pretty good presentation. I liked his jokes. I like the stuff about the non-refundable free workshop. That's really genius. God, that guy's funny." No, don't say that. Only just make sure that you actually implement this advice. Some people say, "What's the best time to start?" And my answer is, "Hey, here's a photo of my most recent client." No, not in utero. Again, the body of work starts. You start creating it in ninth grade, but many kids are not ready for advice then. And we say this all the time. If you're a parent, you can't want it more than your child, which is why whenever we're talking to someone about potentially working with us, we have a policy of a mandatory student interview first, because we want to exclude kids who are not ready for us, where the parent wants it more than a child does. All right, so mistake number 13 is about negotiating, assuming that your award is your final offer. Assuming that your award is your final offer. So here's what I mean about that. Here's a client of ours from last year who got an initial nice offer from University of Chicago on March 4th. And then March 8th, we were able to bump that up by a few $1,000s, and then again, another few $1,000s. So that was a big windfall to them. They did not get their highest and best offer initially. This is from this year. We had a client who got $29,000 initially from RPI, then another $5,000, and then ultimately another $17,000 per year, which is a $68,000 increase. Not too bad. The best defense against these colleges is a good offense. It's great to have offers from competing colleges. So when you're finalizing your list, think about that. You must have new information to share with these colleges when you are appealing and negotiating. And you must be willing to play them off against each other mercilessly and ruthlessly. I know that's a little dramatic, but that's the way I think. So let's talk about the anatomy of an appeal. And this is straight from my bestseller book, How to Negotiate Your Crappy Financial Aid and Merit Aid Offer, available on Amazon, and a great gift idea. Share new information such as, my income is different. Look, this year, I haven't been working at all, or we're down, I've been furloughed, or, I know you're basing my, that was annoying. I know you're basing information from 2 years ago on the award that you're giving 2 years ago. A lot has changed since then. What about unusual expenses? Not regular expenses, unusual expenses. I have crazy legal bills or medical bills. All these things are called special circumstances. And you look at any policy on a website of a financial aid office, and they'll say they have the ability to use their professional judgment, to go outside the boxes of a financial aid award and consider special circumstances. I always include, when I'm writing an appeal, all the stakeholders. So if I'm writing a financial aid appeal, hey, our income is a lot lower since then, or I made a mistake or something like that, I'll send it to admissions also. If the kid's recruited an athlete, I'll send it to the coach. Anyone who has a vested interest. If I'm just doing a merit award, it's more like, hey, I got these offers from these other schools. Can you help a brother out? Then I won't send it financial aid, but I will send it to the admissions department and any other stakeholder, anyone else that you have a rapport with. And always, I always think when I say this, it should go without saying, but always be respectful and polite. Don't be aggressive and adversarial. Are you guys kidding me? What orifice do you think I'm going to pull this money out of? How do you justify charging what you charge? Are you guys on crack? Think that, don't say it. And last tip, follow their protocol. If they want you to talk to them on the phone, do that. If they say, here's our form, fill it out, don't call them on the phone. Fill out their form. Sooner or later, they want it in writing. So my feeling is start with it in writing to clarify your thoughts, then send it, then get them on the phone if they want that. But I think that a lot of financial aid officers really don't like doing this. It's haggling. It's probably the worst part of their jobs. Many of them, not all of them. And they're employees of a business. So they may not have the incentive to really help you out. that's why I like to include all stakeholders, because the admissions department really cares more about landing a kid than a financial aid bean counter cares about how they're spending their money. So follow the directions. Don't wing it. Don't do it on your own. And then you might get results like this. This is from years ago. A client of ours improved just following what I just laid out for you. An initial offer of $23,518 to $53,540 just recently. And I'm putting this up here just so you understand that you have to be perseverant sometimes. We got an improvement. The guy said, write another appeal. Scott had a connection. He got in touch with her. Finally got an answer. Josh, they had twins going to the same school, got a total of an increase of from $15,000 to $30,000, and Sarah went from $10,000 to $28,000 from a school they heard was not known for giving so much money. That was pretty cool. And when you tally it all up, it's $33,000 per year times 4, $132,000 increase over the 4 years. Better than a sharp stick in the eye. So that's the type of life changer and game changer this can be. So we're at the end of the training. I wanted to ask you, are you inspired a little bit? Are you motivated? Give me a yes in chat if you are. Do you see how this approach that I've laid out for you can work for you? Let me know if you agree there. And do you see the dangers, not just financial, but emotional dangers of not having a plan? What would it mean to you if you could save thousands or tens of thousands of dollars off the cost of your dream college? Or if you had no stress about what colleges they could get into, or what to write essays about, or applications, or visits, or all that stuff, what to do or when? Just how much time or money could you save with a solid plan? So now we're at the end here. You've got 2 paths laid out for you, only 2 choices. You can do this on your own and just kind of wing it, or you can follow a tested and proven system to get results. So is it okay if I now take a few minutes to tell you about the P4 program, that's what we call it, and how you can work with us? Just give me a thumbs up in chat or a yes if I did a good enough job delivering on what I promised. Taking a lot of water sips here. Hopefully I won't run to the bathroom in the middle of this. Okay. Okay, thanks, guys. All right, so I'm going to go ahead with it. But before I get there, this is not for everyone. First of all, it's for families who want to, give their kids an edge of getting into competitive colleges. And they also want to get discounts, 25, 35, 50% off. And you'll see, if it's appropriate, that, of course, we require an investment, but you can see results. I've shown you some results that others have gotten from our program. And you've got to be able to commit some time to this. It's usually not 2 hours a month. It might be an hour, but it's a two-way street. We're not good with people who just kind of say, all right, I hired you. You're going to take care of everything. No, we need participation and cooperation, especially from the kids. If you're interested in getting coached through the college process, we're not good with entitled kids at all. They have to be willing to do their work. I don't really care so much about academic achievements. I care more about attitude. So the P4 system, the first P is plan. And that means we uncover how a child is wired. We compare their patterns to millions of other people who have done this particular assessment. We identify a total of 6 to 10 majors and then cull that down. Here's an example of the assessment from Pearl, who ranked very high with numerical, working with numbers and data, which is pretty cool. She did this maybe 6 years ago, because she does all of our financial aid forms. Hello. The next part is path. So plan, then path. That means backward planning and creating a path. The college is reputable, backing into a college is reputable across a cluster of majors. It's okay to switch majors once or twice if you're within the cluster. But if you're out of the cluster, you're looking at the 6-year plan. And more important, or most important, colleges that help position you for success post-college, meaning colleges that have great internship programs and support through the Career Center and amenities like that. That is what we are highly focused on. And again, I know it's different than what most colleges focus on. Most college advisors, most guidance counselors focus on, but that's what we're all about. As well as more traditional college advising considerations like, do you like the mascot? Do you like is the hoodie good? East Coast, West Coast, small, medium, large, etc. Here's an example of how we help kids identify colleges. This is our software that we use, created by the gentleman from Princeton that I mentioned before. Here are 9 factors, not just grades and scores like Naviance, as well as ethnicity and race and whatever. In this case, the child had a 50-50 shot. That's what the green category means at Duke, Penn, Brown, Vanderbilt. And I think she got into 3 out of these 4. She's attending Brown, so that was pretty cool. The third P, plan, path, position, is about reverse engineering exactly what admissions officers want, so you can serve it up to them and get in, even if your last name isn't featured on a new dorm or science building. We do a lot of work with the applications and essays, so you'll know exactly what admissions officers wants to see in your essay, because we have former admissions officers on staff that help our kids figure that out. And you'll be able to answer this question: why should we take you compared to these 5,000 or more accurately up to 90,000 other kids who look the same on paper? And we help with the interviews and visiting strategies, assuming we ever have visits again, what to say, who to say to, etc. And then there's the essay. We do a lot of work on the essay. I mentioned that before. This is the most stressful thing for kids and parents and moms. And then the last P is about the money, producing the money. We'll help you identify the schools that will be the most generous to your child, who are likely to bribe your kid. We do all the forms on time and accurately, so you don't have to stress out about it. You won't miss any deadlines, which is so easy to do, and key timelines. We support you through the entire process. A follow-up request, which I did not talk about, but there's so much stuff that happens after you file. That's not when it ends when you file. That's often when it starts. That's what Pearl says all the time. And we're in your corner and helping you through the whole negotiating and appeal process. What is this worth? How many people do you know who chose the wrong major and career and have regrets? Hopefully you're not one of them. What's it worth if you avoid applying only to full boat schools? A lot of people end up not doing well because they only apply to the wrong schools. And then you have to take on debt or something horrible. Our services, we do ask for a substantial investment, but they're less than one small scholarship. You'll save thousands off the cost of college if that's the advice you're interested in. But you also get into a great school. Your child will get into great schools that will help prepare them for satisfying and lucrative careers, life post-college. And I don't know how to quantify stress relief, but if you did the math and you got just one extra scholarship worth a measly $5,000 per year from our program, I'll do the math for you. That would be worth $20,000. And obviously, we're trying to do a whole lot more than come up with $5,000 a year. Sometimes we do. Sometimes, like with Scott and Barbara, excuse me, they got the amount, $132,000. Or we played Harvard and Yale off each other. Our client got more than $20,000 a year. So then there's the cost of not planning, not being accepted where you should have been accepted, not foregoing the advantages you might have enjoyed at that school, or the inability to afford the college that your kid deserves to go to, or crushing debt. That can easily be a $200,000 problem. We're helping you avoid that too. So what you really get is not only that, but clarity and confidence that you have a rock-solid game plan. You know exactly what you need to do and when to get an almost unfair advantage over the other applicants. And you can avoid admissions Armageddon by crafting a realistic, strategic, and balanced list of schools that help your child succeed after college, and how to win scholarships and aid so you can comfortably afford your dream college instead of having to confess, I'm sorry, I know you got in, but I just didn't do my part. We'll help avoid that. You're on third base. You've come a long way with kids, right? They're 16 years old, 15, 17, who knows. You're on third base, rounding home, carpool them for 15 years, practices, games, tournaments, rehearsals, tutors, other activities that add up to a small fortune. What good is doing all that if you don't take action now and take this opportunity to get them what they need now during the most challenging part of their lives? Don't you want to look back 1 year from now and feel great that you did everything you could do to help them succeed? So either click on the button you see here or go to this site, getcollegeplan.com, if you're interested in talking to us for free and getting results like, getting into MIT, or we got into Cornell without any expectations. It helped us with so many aspects of this process. The Cornell rep said we had exceptional applications and should be particularly proud. Guess who made all this possible? We are so grateful. So much of your application was based on your sound advice. Columbia. By the way, it's not just Ivy League schools, but I just want you to know that this is the types of kids that do really well with us. Hopkins, Cornell, off the wait list. Again, there's ups and downs, but we're here for you throughout the whole thing. And hopefully you'll feel like Beth did. From the moment I walked into your office, I felt an enormous weight lifted off my shoulders. Thank you for all that you've done for my precious girls. I think that's the real business we're in. We're trying to lift that enormous weight off your shoulders. So normally we charge for these consultations, but for you, because you sat through this webinar and you got our information and you hopefully stayed awake, it is free. The only catch is that you've got to do this within the next 72 hours because I do a lot of these presentations and we're frankly getting overwhelmed just from referrals. So I can't keep this offer open forever. If you are seriously interested in working with us and finding out more about how we can help you with your plan, click on the blue button here or go to getcollegeplan.com. This website will self-destruct within 72 hours. If you've already been on this website because you're on our list, it's not going to allow you on because we only allow one freebie per person. So this is only for new people who have never gone to a presentation before and gotten to this website. Otherwise, it's $499 to do the consultation. That fee is applied against our retainer if you end up working together with us, but it can also be a standalone. But for you, for everyone, for most people watching this, it's free. Go ahead there. And now I'm going to come out of my presentation and answer some questions. Whew. Okay. All right. So I got through that presentation. I saw a lot of great comments and questions, and now I am going to attempt to get through all of them. I know I went a little over on time, so thanks for sticking with us. And I see Pearl's flagged a lot of questions here first. So if you had a question and you could toggle it as a from a chat to a question, it gives it like a red dotty thing. Then that will help me see it as I zip through these right now. So, okay, Lisa, do you have a site that you recommend for this assessment? It's sort of an in-house thing with us, but there's probably dozens and dozens of sites out there that I know that people have used, like Myers-Briggs or Colby. We use something called the Birkman, Birkman. I'm pretty agnostic about which assessments people use. So, well, I guess really because I'm not a career counselor. So our counselors use one called the Birkman. I don't know if that's better or worse. I made the mistake once of asking them and I got a really, really long answer. So I don't really have anything specific that I recommend, but there's a lot out there. Sonia, any free money for international students? Well, yeah, we have a handful of international students who usually receive very generous scholarships. It really depends on which schools you're applying to. That's much more important than these little outside scholarships, which frankly I don't really believe in. So international students, particularly now, are highly desirable for particularly private colleges, and they, if you match up to those private schools, those private colleges, and occasionally some public colleges, you'll do really well. Okay. Let's see here. Rena had a question about a child making money or getting unemployment as a sophomore. So should we spend that money by the end of the year? So that question is about which assets penalize you more than others and which don't. And child assets, as I said during the presentation, those penalize you a lot. So anything you can do to get them off the balance sheet, including spending them, would be a great idea. But there's no look back for the assets. So you can get rid of that literally the day you file. The forms have to be accurate as of the date you file for your savings, for your assets, but the income is from 2 years ago. just to be clear. So if you have someone graduating, I saw this question, graduating 2021, I think a lot of you guys do, then the financial aid forms will look at information from the 2019 tax returns. It's a 2-year look back from income, just income, not the assets. In terms of when those forms are due, I saw a question about that. Pearl noted in the chat that they are released in October, but in terms of when they're due, that varies from school to school. Okay. That was a 4-pronged answer to a 1-pronged question. Eugene, why is life insurance exempt? Why does day follow night? I don't really know the answer. I've read a lot of speculation about it. I don't really think it matters why it just is. That's the important thing. But there's a public policy against counting things like life insurance and retirement accounts against you for financial aid. That's the bottom line. But there's a much more nuanced answer to that I don't think anyone's going to be interested in. Sherry, still don't understand about 529 plans, whether good or bad. So by the way, if you have questions, flag them as questions. There's a little toggle thing that changes it from a chat to a question instantly. So that's what I'm going through right now here. So if you have a question, you're waiting for it, I'm going to get to it as long as you flagged it. So 529s are good for some families and bad for other families. And there's a bunch of moving factors. That's what I was trying to say. And that's probably why you're a little bit confused. Depends on the schools you're applying to, depends on your income, depends on the rest of what you have saved. So if you're not going to qualify for need-based aid because of your income or because of the schools that you're applying to, then they're probably a good thing because you can use the tax benefits. But if you otherwise were going to qualify for need-based aid, then the 529s are a bad thing. So that it really depends. And I don't mean to be dodgy. It's just a sort of a personal one-on-one question. David says the 529 is bad. I mean, yeah, it could be bad, could be good, could be friend, could be foe. Lisa, so what type of account is good? Well, I talked about the 4 exemptions in the in this presentation. So insurance is one of them, like we talked about, and there's 3 others. Scott, for 2021 grads, when do we fill out the FAFSA? Right. So it's available in October, and then the schools will tell you what their priority deadlines are for each. Doug, can you use an annuity and or life insurance policy for tuition payments? People do that. I'm not a financial advisor, so I can't speak to what those products can be used for. But my understanding is there's no specific thing that you're limited to. Like for a 529, for example, you have to use those funds for what they call qualified higher education expenses. But anything else, like if you set up your own insurance product or your own annuity, you can use it for anything you want. That's my understanding of it. What we got here? Okay. Pooja Dharanani. How close am I of saying that correctly? I'm sorry if I butchered that one. Any other big strategies to save money for business owners? Well, there's a lot of them. So the short answer is yes. There's a lot of tax type strategies. I call them loosely. I call them business scholarships. My CPA, his name is Rick Darvis. He refers to them as tax scholarships. There's a lot of things depending on your business. Some strategies are available to some business owners, some are not. But it's a combination of credits and deductions, and sometimes there's a few different things, ways to unlock money from your business. So that's a specialty of ours. And I bring in Rick, my own personal accountant, who specializes in high income business owners who cannot qualify for financial aid. Read into that, if you will, the irony laden in that sentence. So if you're interested in discussing that and how that works, book the free college strategy session. I think that should still be up. That blue button that says, what does it say? Yes, sign me up. So that'd be a good discussion for us to have. David, offshore accounts, funny. No comment. Scott, what are your thoughts about schools that advertise that they don't give merit aid, such as Hamilton and Franklin and Marshall? Well, for the most part, it's true, but I've seen them bend rules egregiously. So I don't quite believe it, but I do believe it for probably 90% of the time. Sometimes they can find need that didn't exist. That's my little hesitancy. Shreyas, is there any possible way I could receive a recorded version of this meeting. Is there an echo? I think we managed to record it. I was unable to talk to my overseas tech guy for most of the day today, but then he got back to me, and I'm hoping we'll be able to. Robin, can appealing to admissions, etc., work for sophomores in college as well? It can work, but you need leverage if that you may not have, right? You may not have offers from other colleges. Sorry, you don't need that, but that helps to have that. But if there's been a change in circumstances, like a drop in income or something because of coronavirus, absolutely, and positively. Jeff, for me, it's a transfer student. My son got accepted, just trying to figure out financial aid. I bought your negotiation crappy financial aid book from Amazon. Thanks. Yeah, transferring is basically, for financial aid purposes, is the same as if you're applying from high school. So it all should all those strategies should pertain to you the same way they pertain to kids in high school. And if you like the book, please give me a good review on Amazon, because I don't think anyone's reviewed it yet, or only a handful of people have. So and God knows it's not going to take you more than an hour and a half to get through it. That's including the goofy footnotes. Scott, do you know if funny question. Do you know if we can use the 529 account to pay for your services? Scott, I'm not in it for the money. I'm just doing this out of the goodness of my heart. No, the answer is that's the greatest question anyone's asked me tonight. And the serious answer is hiring an outside educational consultant is not, to my knowledge, is not considered a qualified higher education expense. That being said, I'm not an accountant, so they would know the strict definition. It just changed last year, and I looked it up a few weeks ago, but I don't keep it all in my head. And I'll tell you flat out that many people do exactly that when they work with us, but that doesn't. So I think the 529 stuff is kind of on the honor code, but my belief is that that does not fall in that umbrella of the qualified higher education expense. But God, I love that question. All right, PY. Do you give out a list of which colleges will give you the big bucks and which won't? Well, I don't give that. I mean, that's what people retain us for, and that's really dependent. It takes a lot of work because matching kids up with each of the colleges that are appropriate for them, as well as the ones that are most generous. But if you Google, if you just want to know kind of in general, which are the most generous colleges, I'm sure you'd come up with some sort of list, because I see stuff like that all over the internet, which is, probably basically reliable. You can certainly look on the College Board website. I don't know if they'll give a list, but they'll certainly, break down the average award, the average percentage of financial need met, and other, important factors. Doug, can tuition payments come from a third-party account? Colleges don't care where they get the money from, so for the most part. So as long as you're paying them, that's fine. That's the short answer. Okay, how cynical is this guy, huh? That's probably what you're thinking. Stacy, if a child is unable to take the SAT because they got canceled from the coronavirus, is there something else a child should do to qualify for merit aid? Yeah, that's a big issue, but I think there will be many opportunities into the fall to take the SAT. So I don't think that is going to happen. I don't like to make predictions like that, but merit aid is very highly predicated on scores. So I think you have to take them. And even if they're offered online, which the College Board says it can do, that's probably one of the reasons, then that should help. And every school does not require scores, SAT or ACT, for merit aid, but most of them do. So that was sort of a general blanket statement. Stacy, how can you tell which schools are competing? Well, I will admit, some of it's just my own experience, but some of it is also fairly easy and commonsensical to figure out, such as schools in the same conference, or schools that are reputable in similar areas, like schools that are known for nursing or something. So those are the two of the easier ones, and then the rest is sort of experience. There's no database or hard and fast rule. All right, that's the end of the red questions. I'm just going to skim the chat right now to see if I can pick up anything that's of interest. But if you want to, this is your last call for questions. If you asked something and you didn't flag it as a question, try to do that. And then we got a few minutes left here, and I will attempt to answer that. And I want to thank Sharon for offering for helping set this up. I appreciate it, Sharon from the library. And I don't see, let's see here, someone to leave her virtual PTA meeting. Bad move. What are you guys going to talk about? Just kidding. All right, good. I see some last questions coming here from Stuart. Is a trust for the benefit of a parent calculated as an asset? If that parent can access that money, but first of all trusts get disclosed. Second of all, if that parent is the beneficiary and can currently access that money, then yeah, sure, that's going to count as a resource that can be used to pay for college. However, if the parent is what they call a contingent beneficiary, meaning that they're not able to access the money until something happens, typically the grandparent passing away, then I make the argument all the time that, look, I know that we have a trust, but we can't access the money, so that's not a resource that we can use to pay for college. So it really depends on the nature of the trust. Let's see. Doug, is there a link to your online tutor? Yeah. Is that included or an additional expense? It depends on the package. So I'm just going to post it right here. It's lockwoodtestprep.com. And you'll see we're doing online classes as well as one-on-one tutoring coming up. But thanks. Yeah, and we can talk if you schedule a strategy session. We can certainly talk about anything you want regarding tutoring and everything else. Robin, lots of private colleges take the CLT in place of the SAT and ACT. It is available online. Yeah, that is true. I think that's the collegiate learning test. I think that's what it stands for. We just, most of the kids that I know take either the SAT or the ACT. And I don't really know anyone who helps prep for the CLT, but you're right. It's a valid alternative. Okay. So we're done. Really appreciate all these questions. This really gives me a charge. And I love the fact that you chose to spend your time with me and Pearl lurking in the background. So if you have any questions, anything that wasn't resolved here that you thought about after we concluded the call, that's it's totally fine. Just reach out, and if you want, like I said, if you want to schedule time to talk about possibly working together, that's on the blue button right there. Otherwise, thanks a lot, and I'll talk to you soon. Have a great night. Bye-bye.